All right, and welcome back to This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Joining me today to discuss the world of photography and more are Mr. Doug Kay and Mr. Thomas Hawk. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Great, Frederick. Good to see you. And you
I
too,
know.
Thomas.
This is going to be a great show, guys. There's some cool stuff to talk about, and we've got Thomas Hawk on the line, so you know where this conversation is going to go. We're going to social media and some cool stuff like that. So,
Oh yeah.
Thomas, you haven't been on in forever. I think it was like 2009 or something last time you were on.
I thought I was banned from the show.
You are not banned from the show. You are not banned. You're never banned. What's been going on? What's been going on in the world of Mr. Hawk?
I've just been taking a lot of pictures, running around the country, different cities here and there, different events, different things, doing all that, and same stuff I always do, and posting stuff and publishing stuff online, and Google Plus and Facebook and Flickr and now Elo, which we'll talk about a little bit, but
We're going to talk about that a lot bit,
I like
and
it.
all those and the aforementioned social media networks as well. I feel like you got your finger on the pulse of all this stuff, so I need to take the pulse of the state of the industry with you. So we'll dive into that. Also on the show is Mr. Doug Kay, a host of All About the Gear. What's up, Doug?
Not much. I haven't seen you for 5 hours.
We recorded an episode of All About the Gear today. What do we talk about today, Doug? What camera was it?
The Nikon D750 today. And I had to look across the room to remember because there have been so many cameras.
Yes. So what's up in the world of Doug Kay?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of teaching. That's really been keeping me very busy. And, of course, all about the gear because PhotoPlus Expo being over, we're catching up. We just published the LX100, Lumix LX100 show, and a few days after this episode goes live on TWiP will be our Nikon D810 review, which I'm looking forward to getting people yelling and screaming about. So been busy, and then we're doing that iMac 5K show you and I are going to do together.
Yes. I'm really interested to get your thoughts on that. Mine is sitting right here. I have some thoughts. Thomas, have you seen the new iMac 5K?
I'm looking at it right in front of me right now, baby.
we could just do that show now, right? Couldn't we?
I know. We got 3 of them right here. Let's do it.
Wow, best computer ever. I love it.
You know what? People call me a fanboy. I will happily accept the label of fanboy when it comes to this particular computer because I can honestly say of all the computers that I've owned so far, this has got to be the best looking and most powerful and cleanest one that I've ever had. So
I got to say one thing about this. One thing about this computer, though, I've got a print competition tomorrow night, so I had to fire off 3 prints for that.
Yeah.
And they look like crap compared to my screen. You know? Because on the screen, everything's gorgeous. I mean, just
well, you know
gorgeous.
what? You need to write a letter to Epson or Canon or whomever and say, hey, you guys need to get on it with those Retina printers because we need... Because you got to keep up. Come on,
It is good. It is so clean. Everything looks so amazing.
Even Thomas Hawk looks good on my screen.
This I gotta say, not to spend too much time on this computer, but when I booted this thing up, what was it, last Friday when I got it and took it out of the box? You know that screen that comes up with Yosemite on it? When I saw that screen, that was the first time I had to like sit back in my chair and say, really? I was blown away.
Even the little things, you're like reading text and you're like, wow, I just want to stare at these letters.
Yeah.
So,
it's like print, on-screen print. Yeah.
It's
Lovely, but that's a different topic. We'll talk about that in that All About the Gear show. But suffice it to say, all 3 of us are happy with our computers so far.
Yeah.
All right, gents, before we jump into the show, I want to thank our first sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our friends at lynda.com. All right, guys, let's jump into the news. First up, PhotoPlus Expo, which I just got back from last night after being stuck midway in Chicago. I was stuck at midway between here and New York for 2 hours because Southwest said their radar was broken on the particular plane that I was flying in, so they had to like put a new one in there before they could fly us over the Rockies. But I'm here now. PhotoPlus Expo was good. It was, I spent time in the Panasonic booth. There wasn't a whole lot of new stuff that I saw announced. There was this Mylio thing that we're going to talk about a little bit, but in terms of gear, lighting, all that stuff, it was just kind of a physical manifestation of stuff that you probably read about online already. Now, did you guys hear anything differently, through the interwebs about what happened at PhotoPlus?
I heard a lot of people talking about it, and to me, it sounded like a lot of it was the social side of getting together and hanging out.
Oh, the parties were crazy,
Yeah, hanging out with a lot of cool people. And as far as what was there, I shoot Canon, so I saw Canon was doing their 70 Mark II, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's nothing that I saw. Olympus had a couple of new lenses, right?
Yeah.
Some stuff like that, but I didn't see anything that was really groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Doug, what about you? Did you see anything exciting and new?
Well, I actually had to go and dig up what was announced there, and I think vendors now don't actually save their announcements for PhotoPlus because
it's Photokina, right? Photokina is like a couple weeks before.
Even that, there's too much competition for attention. You're better off getting your announcements out a week or two before those shows, and getting some press. Other than you go to those shows and you got 200, 300 vendors all with press kits, and no one's going to pay any attention. I think Thomas hit on a good one. I think Olympus has got this new 300 millimeter f4, which is a 600 millimeter equivalent. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
The 7D Mark II, the Nikon D7, all these came out before the show.
Right.
But I was looking at somebody's wrap up of all the major announcements. And the one that struck me was the fact that Canon was offering their lens cleaning service at the show. I said, "Well,
they all were." Canon was. Sony had engineers in a little plastic booth where you could bring your camera in for calibration. Panasonic was doing the same thing. So maybe that's what these shows are for, maintenance.
Yeah, but if that makes the highlight reels, that doesn't say much about the show, does it?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, Thomas, I want to ask you about this. So, you've been shooting for a while. You've been to many and many of these shows. Why can't we have a show that has something groundbreaking and monumental? You remember like the old days of Macworld where, you go in there and that's where you learn about the new iMac and all this stuff and you'd be jazzed to get on the show floor to see it and touch it and all that. Are those days over now because the web is here or what?
I don't know. I guess, it's like what is the next groundbreaking technology, right? I mean, Epson had some scanners there, right? Okay, great. So that's cool, right? The scanner's a little bit better than the last one. It's just not, but nobody's doing any, it feels to me like nobody's doing any really groundbreaking sort of work or some new paradigm. I mean, Olympus has a better lens. Canon has a better body.
Incremental. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. So I don't know. I always look at things like, at these sorts of events as really more of an opportunity to network and talk to people and hang out and have fun and party and do all that stuff.
Yeah, why don't we should call a spade and just do have a yearly big party for photographers, that is just like a Mardi Gras for photographers. It's a series of ongoing parties for 3 days, where you meet and greet and almost like South by Southwest for photographers. How about we do that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. Scott Kelby has one. He calls it Photoshop World.
Well, there you go. And it's in Las Vegas, which is an ongoing party, right?
Its own party.
He even provides the music.
Yeah. I don't know, Doug. What do you think? I mean, are these trade shows? Because it's a lot of money to go to these trade shows. You got to fly there. Then there's the accommodations, and then the outlay for food and all that stuff. And arguably you could get all the information online. Is the value add, like Thomas was saying, the social aspect? And for some people, they're maybe antisocial, so they wouldn't even get that. What do you think?
Well, I don't go to shows. Spent 25 years in high tech and got so burned out of Comdex and things like that I hate them. I will avoid those shows at almost all costs. That's me personally.
Because you're a misanthrope, right? You just hate people generally.
It's not that. I know I love the people. I love to get together and socialize. Go on a Thomas Hawk photo walk. But that's a lot of fun. But these shows are about the most inefficient way to do almost anything. And of course, all my bad experiences predate the web pretty much. God, I'm old. But
Wait, how do you predate the web? I mean, come on. That was
how do you
like
predate the web? Are you kidding? The web
the
is
web
like
was
brand
created
new.
by the military in what, 1960 or something? I mean, come on.
The web is the new thing. Are you kidding? It's happening now. But
Yes.
I'd rather get online and learn stuff that way, and listen to you. So that's just me. I don't do trade shows. I skip them.
I hear you. All right, before I want to center this conversation, as we were saying before I started recording. I want to center this conversation a little bit on social media and kind of the state of it with you guys. Both of you guys are active on social media, so I want to kind of dive into that. There's some new players there that a lot of photographers are wondering about, so I want to talk about that a little bit. But continuing the discussion about PhotoPlus Expo, one of the announcements there was a company called Mylio, which they offered up kind of an interesting new service. Mylio is an acronym for My Life is Organized, and they launched at the show describing their value add as kind of merging the organizational capabilities of Lightroom with the sync capabilities of Dropbox across all your devices and all that. When I first looked at it, and I got an email from them early on, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh man, that looks cool. And sitting through one of their presentations at the show, it still looked cool. But I wanted to get you guys, get your thoughts on it. I know you probably watched the video that they have online and all that if you haven't played with it yet. But Thomas, on your side, as you are on your quest to, I forget what your main number is that you're trying to hit in terms of overall image acquisition, but a service like this, 1 million, right? So a service like this with your established workflow, would this fit into what you need, or is this like is it a cure in search of a disease?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what I read about the service, and I don't know exactly, but one, it seems like they've got like 3 levels, right? They've got a basic, and a standard, and an advanced. And I think like the basic's like 50,000 JPEGs, and the standard is 100,000 JPEGs, and the advanced plan will do up to 500,000 JPEGs. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, my problem is I've got millions of RAW files. Yeah. So if 500,000 JPEGs, that sounds kind of interesting, but as far as my needs, I mean, I don't think it could handle what I've got.
But in defense of them, I bet you if they see this show, they will probably reach out to you and give you a Thomas Hawk level account where they change that little variable to 4 million or something instead of what it defaults to for normal people.
That's kind of my point too, because it's kind of like what Flickr did, right? When they gave everybody a terabyte of storage, right? And now Pro accounts are unlimited. So I mean, it's like, I think, why set limits at all, really? Almost, why set? I mean, because if nobody's going to hit them, or 0.0001% people are going to have more than 500,000 photos. I would think if somebody has more than 500,000 photos, though, that might be the sort of person or spokesperson or ambassador, I don't know how you put it, but if someone's doing that much photography, you'd probably want them involved. For me, I don't know. I haven't had a lot of success with the cloud and putting large amounts of photos in the cloud.
What have you tried so far, though?
I've tried some of the backup plans and whatnot, like Crash
Backblaze, all those guys, yeah.
Yeah, all those things. And, there was one for a while that was unlimited, but then they throttled the photos to the site. And so, I don't know. I mean, it sounds interesting as sort of a backup idea. I'm just not sure. I mean, I'm looking at 2 Drobos here with 15 or 3 terabytes. Yeah, 30 terabytes, and a Western Digital MyBook with another 8 terabytes. So, I mean, what do you do with that sort of data? And that's nothing against the service, because I'm the bleeding edge, and I'm very, very rare. For a lot of people, that may be kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, Doug, what about you? What do you think? So the Mylio service, does this fit into what you might use in your workflow?
Well, first of all, I just realized I need to thank Thomas Hawk, because he's responsible for this Thunderbolt Western Digital thing. Thomas did a great review of this, and one of the reasons I bought the new iMac was because my old one didn't have Thunderbolt, and I ran out of storage. So I've got that same 8 terabyte 2-drive unit. And thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that on a personal basis.
Yeah, no, that's a great little unit, and with Thunderbolt is so fast to get stuff on
great.
there. Well,
Yeah,
But
I have that one. I have that one as well. So yeah, that's another thing we have in common. IMAX and that drive. I love it.
That's great. And that's my. Well, we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, so I actually did my homework today. I know I don't usually do that, but I went.
I know what's going on.
I downloaded Mylio both for the Mac and for my iPad.
Okay.
And I spent. Let me give the caveat here. I spent 1 hour, which means obviously I have a deeper understanding than some, but not as deep understanding as others. Right?
Sure.
It's slick looking. I actually saw some of the photos from PhotoPlus. They obviously had a nice booth and a nice presentation. The app, both on OS X and on iOS, is very pretty. Somebody did a great job graphically. But I have to say I was unimpressed with the functionality of this thing.
Why?
Well, because there are other ways to do the same thing that's better. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, I guess. But it's, what does it do? So for example, for me, I'm a Lightroom user. Okay, so it will connect to my Lightroom folders. It won't connect to my Lightroom catalogs. Now, or collections. That's very important. My Lightroom folders are where I keep all the original images. So if I shoot, 5,000 pictures for a week, then it's going to pick up all the ones in that folder. I don't want that. I want my collections. I want my selected stuff. I don't want to put all that stuff on my iPad.
Yeah.
So, and it only does JPEGs. It doesn't. If you have a PSD file, it doesn't pick it up at all. It might do the raw files, but like I edit a file in Photoshop, comes back into Lightroom. That doesn't show up in Mylio. I can't see it.
I did see that it supports the raw file. So yeah.
Yeah, raw files. Yeah. But if it's been processed in Photoshop and brought back into Lightroom as a PSD file, you can't see it. So it's not a good way for me to display my portfolio or my galleries or anything like that. It did allow me some editing, so I could do cropping and some things like that. It had some decent tools, but when the image, and then the syncing is very, very fast, I would say that.
Yeah.
Very
I
quick.
saw that on their demo video there. It seemed unreasonably fast.
It was very good, but when the image goes back from the iPad to Lightroom, you have to manually import the metadata. You have to right-click on the image or right-click on the folder and say, synchronize the metadata. Well, that's ridiculous. So I hope we do hear from them. I'd love to be corrected. I accept the fact that I only played with it for an hour, but it didn't work for me.
I'm going to try to do an interview with them because it seems there's a lot of heavy-hitting photographers that I saw in the booth there, and I spoke to offline, like Robert Evans, celebrity wedding photographer, Matthew Jordan Smith was on stage there talking about it. In their demo video, I saw Scott Kelby and a bunch of other notable folks that have lended their endorsement to this thing.
They got the big names out there, didn't they? Not bigger than mine, but let me ask.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, if it's good enough for Scott Kelby, it's good.
Yeah, so let me ask you this: what problem are they actually trying to solve? Are they trying to solve how do I look at my portfolio on my iPad? Are they trying to solve how do I synchronize my editing between Lightroom and my iPad? What I don't really understand what's the main purpose of it, and then does it succeed at that purpose? I'm not convinced.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions. Thomas, I want to have you chime in on this as well. Is your workflow in general? It seems like the path of least resistance for a lot of this stuff is just Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile, right? So you create your app, you create your edits and collections in Lightroom and sync them through the Creative Cloud if you're a member down to Lightroom Mobile on your mobile devices, and boom, there you have it. Are you doing that?
No. I guess for me, what I'm doing, I've got Lightroom, right? And I've got, in the past, and even right now, I don't have all of my photos in Lightroom because I've tried importing them all before, and again, with millions of photographs, it slows down, it gets sluggish, you just can't do it. So I really don't use Lightroom as an organizational tool at all. Again, I'm unique that way, but I use it as a processing tool. So I need to have fewer photos in there so it can process better, faster, etc. But for me, I do all the processing on Lightroom, and then for a lot of what I guess this service is showing, like you want to have a place where you could show your portfolio, or your best, your 5-star rated photos, they say. I would just create a set on Flickr, and and just go through there. I mean, Flickr's on the iPad now. They launched that on the iPad a couple weeks ago.
It looks beautiful, by the way, the Flickr app on the iPad.
Yeah, it is. It looks really nice. But so you have it on your beautiful interface on the mobile, on the iPad, on the web, and you get a terabyte for free.
Right.
So versus for their advanced for 500,000 photos, they want $100 a year. And I agree, they have to charge something, and maybe Flickr, it's kind of absurd that they give you a terabyte for free, but they do. So it'd be kind of like with everybody being able to connect to the web these days, if I was in somebody's office and say showing them, okay, this is some of my better work, or this is my set of photos that I took on Route 66 and started going through it, I would probably tend to just go to the Flickr set.
Yeah, but on Flickr, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, you're still not getting that raw file backup, right? So that's strictly that's the JPEG display only portfolio type stuff. So Flickr, you could use Flickr for that, or 500px for that, or something like that, right?
But I don't think Mylio is selling themselves as a backup service, are they? That's not what they're doing.
I don't think so, but they did mention that they support the RAW file. So if they support importing of the RAW files in the JPEG, then you can look at them as backup. Because why not?
We've been through this. I only have less than 10% of the images that Thomas has, but there's no way an online backup service is going to work for me. I've tried it.
Right. Yeah. It's the upload.
It's just too unwieldy. So I don't know. I really hope we do. I'm happy to hear that I'm wrong. And I look forward to the email from all of our fans.
Yeah. Well, we'll hear about it. Hopefully we'll hear from the Mylio folks too, and we'll give them equal stage time to talk about the app.
They certainly had an impressive launch, didn't they?
They did. All right. The other piece of software I wanted to talk about is Pixelmator. It's on the iPad now, which is arguably really cool because it was on the desktop. And Pixelmator is the kind of the less full-featured but awesomely beautiful version of Photoshop for people that don't want to spend all the money on the Creative Cloud but still edit photos. You still don't get obviously the deep dive into pixel level DNA like you get with Photoshop, but it's good enough for a lot of people. Doug, have you seen Pixelmator? Have you played with it on the iPad? And then more importantly, is this something that you might is Pixelmator something you might work into your workflow on a daily basis?
And I did this one too.
You're on top of it.
Did you bring me an apple? You're just teacher's pet today. What's going on?
Well, I installed the new Pixelmator on my iPad and playing with it. It's Snapseed is probably still the king of the hill on that. Although Pixelmator has some really nice controls. Very well done, very unique, some of the unique ways of modifying settings and things like that. I like it. I think they did a real good job.
I hear a butt coming.
It doesn't work into my workflow. You got all these apps on the iPad that'll access your photo roll, whatever it's called in iOS, Well, I don't want apps that can get to all those hundreds of stupid selfies that I've taken. That's not important to me. But it does sync with iCloud. The new iCloud, finally, I think Apple has it right. iCloud's reasonably fast. But again, it doesn't sync with Lightroom. There's no interface to Lightroom. And in my workflow, I don't do any significant processing on the iPad. The iPad to me is an output device. It's a display device.
But some people do. Like Derek Story, the nimble photographer, advocates shooting in the field, importing into the iPad, organizing there, and then syncing when you get back home. But that's the main bulk of the workflow, is shooting in the field and shooting over to the iPad, doing your editing there. So
yeah, and he's made a whole thing out of it. And Derek's great. I love him, and how nice for him.
Yeah, I think that's not for me. I'm not doing that.
I think I'm with Doug. I mean, I just don't like processing on anything but a big screen for my serious work. And so now, in addition to the iMac here, the new iMac now, I've got a 15-inch MacBook Pro, which is much more powerful, obviously, than a tablet, and I do have a full version of Lightroom on that. So if I am in the field and need to make edits, for me personally, again, I would go with Lightroom and Photoshop because I think they're more powerful applications. If I didn't have those, I mean, for $4.99 for an iPad, if that's all I had to use, this might be pretty cool. On my phone, I use, like Doug said, Snapseed, though. I think Snapseed is amazing for that. And again, that's also free. Yep. So, I don't know. Is this better than Snapseed? I'll use Snapseed or Visco on the iPhone, and some of these other apps that are free. I don't know.
Yeah, and then there's the one that's not free, $4.99 for Camera Plus, was pretty. That's a pretty. I just got deep into Camera Plus a little bit. I was sitting on the plane, or actually no, I was sitting in the terminal in Chicago waiting on my plane to get fixed. So I was playing with Camera Plus. Camera Plus is insane. I mean, that little photo app is pretty dang strong in terms of the features that it comes built in. Plus, you can extend it with in-app purchases and all that. So if you haven't played with that.
There's a lot out there. I haven't tried Pixelmator yet, so I don't know. But I can't imagine really, like Doug, the iPad for me is more of a display device, not a device to edit on. But that's just. Yep.
I hear you. Well, I'd suggest listeners and watchers give it a shot. Go download. I think you can play with it, or at least head over to their site and watch some of their demo videos. It's pretty interesting to play around and see, at the very least. What could be an alternative to Photoshop for folks that can't afford or don't want to afford Adobe's Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
All right, guys, before what's that? Say that again, Tom?
What do you have to lose? $5.
Right. Nothing. A cup of coffee. Less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Right. All right, guys, before we jump into this, the big discussion of this show, I want to thank the next sponsor of this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our friends at Squarespace.com. Okay, so social media is what I want to chat about. Thomas Hawk, you're on the show. You've got 1 or 2 followers on social media. As a couple, 1 or 2 stragglers out there, as does Doug K. So, Thomas, I'm going to throw this to you first. And I'm going to put a sharp edge on this discussion because this has been something that's bugging me, right?
All right.
So I follow you, obviously. I follow Trey and a bunch of other really heavy-hitting social media photographer juggernauts out there, and I pay attention to the ebbs and flows of where you guys are paying attention to. Google Plus, it seems like in 2013 was the place to be. That's where the party was. The music was thumping. There's a line out the door to get in the club. You guys had table service in there. It was all on. This year, I don't know. It seems like it's like Studio 54 a little bit. Doesn't have its heyday like it had back in the 80s. It's a little bit kind of the lights are coming up. Am I wrong or am I missing something? What do you think?
No. I think you're right. I mean, I love all these sites, but and I'm active on all of them, and I love Google Plus. Vic left Google Plus, right? So Vic Gundotra, who was the big cheerleader. I mean, this guy, Google I/O, not this past year, but the year before. I mean, he was up there. It was just Google Plus, Google Plus, Google Plus, a million times. And Vic was a very vocal cheerleader, and he was a fairly senior guy in the company. And this was Larry Page's baby, and bonuses at Google were tied to it. And I think there was all of this momentum, and then, I don't know. I mean, I think the product probably matured a little bit just naturally. It went from, really an iteration and innovation stage to kind of all right, now this thing's developed, what are we going to do next? But it felt like some of that momentum, at least to me, when Vic left, and, and who knows, why did Vic leave, right? I mean, why was he fired? Did he quit? Did he, this is such an important product for Google, and here's the guy that's running it and championing it, and he's gone. So I don't know, and we haven't heard a lot from it.
No, nothing. And it's been a long time, right? I mean, it's been a while of waiting because, like you're saying, when Vic was there, it was updates and feature lists and this is coming and look at, hey, we just bought these guys, and now they bought, what was it, On One, now or who was it that created Snapseed? They brought that engine in there, and it was just by the numbers, hammering, almost like a startup. And then lately, over the past 4 or 5 months or so, it's been crickets, and it's all, and a lot of, you look at the naysayers for Google Plus, and they're like, Google Plus is the big joke kind of like all these other failed social media networks. And I don't want to say that they're failed. I want them to succeed. You know,
yeah, I do too. I mean, I love Google Plus. You know, I think part of it that's a little bit interesting is that it seems like any time that they try to really talk about the product or promote the product, people kick back, you know.
Yeah.
And they don't like it, and they say, oh, it's a ghost town, and it's this and that. And from my understanding is that actually outside of the U.S., that they are promoting it and that it's growing a lot still. But it's more, you know, inside the U.S. where they've had, you know, they can't really promote it and market it very well.
Because have they seceded the battle to Facebook and said, okay, we can't win on your turf, which is mainly in the United States, so we're going to go outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think that may be part of it, and you know, on the other hand, I think, you know, it is successful for what it does. I mean, there are still a lot of people using it. There's a lot of photographers on it all the time, and you know, I think the other day they did try to do, you know, a little bit of PR. I can't remember what site it was. Was it the Next Web or one of those sites? Dave Besbris, who's the guy that's running in charge of it now, had gone on there and did a little interview or something like that. So I think that, you know, that they are trying to promote it a little bit, but you know, the criticism is a
little bit. And Doug, I want to have you chime in on this too, because I'll tell you, yesterday, yesterday and the day before, I was in New York for the PhotoPlus thing, like I said, and I went to Times Square. All over Times Square is the new Google ad campaign for Android. You know, it was like, don't be the same, be different, or whatever it was. But it's an awesome ad campaign. Cabs are playing it in the video screens inside the cabs as you're riding around town. I saw no mention of Google Plus anywhere. Anywhere. We're probably talking, you know, $1 billion ad buy here. No mention of Google Plus, which was sad. Doug, what about you? I mean, you've been watching this stuff. You're online. You know, you've got your social media presences as well. You've seen the ebbs and flows with Google Plus. Are you seeing, is the tide going out, or is it just, you know, perception?
Well, I think probably all three of us. I know Thomas and I were both in Google Plus on day one. I think Frederick, you were probably there too, and they really did a big push for photographers. So since it was the new kid on the block, I think all of us used Google Plus as a way to keep track of other photographers. My non-photographer friends are not on there. My non-photographer family members are not on there. But all my photographer friends are on Google Plus and still pretty active. And as you know, we're speculating a bit, as Thomas said, you know, Vic was really the guy behind all this. And at one point, Google was talking about Google Plus being the glue that would hold together essentially the identity aspects of all of their products. And my sense, I don't have any inside information on this, but my sense is that that didn't work out for either technical or political reasons. And Google Plus, somebody decided that it was not going to be the backbone of Google in terms of integrating identities and logins and and you know, that kind of stuff. And I think I think it's basically taken a hit inside the company.
And there was the backlash against the integration of YouTube and the commenting fiasco. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a mess.
Right. Yeah. So there was that, and then, you know, I had read. I don't have any inside information either, but I had read somewhere that there was the integration or the weighting of search results based on the number of followers. For example, you know, I don't have as many followers as Thomas, so if I was to like something, it would theoretically not bubble up to the top of search results as if, you know, if Thomas liked something, it would go up to the top, millions of followers versus my thousands of followers, right? So that seemed kind of plausible, but I don't know. You know, it's the whole thing is just sort of iffy. There's a big question mark around Google Plus for me.
The fact is that Google Plus has failed to attract a large number of users like Facebook has. I just looked at Thomas Hawk's numbers. Thomas Hawk has 7.4 million followers on Google Plus.
That's he's like Miley Cyrus of photography.
What's that?
Like I said, I've got a couple.
Yeah.
You got a couple.
Yeah, but I want you to know that he has not yet reached 12 billion views. but I think
Not
he's
yet.
about to in the next week. 12.
There,
12.
there are a lot of views, and again, I see, like I say, I see more and more international users. My account, because it was a promoted account by Google as well on the suggested user list, tends to attract a broad range of people that are on the site. And I do see a lot of international users outside of the U.S. I don't know. I mean, I think the problem that Google Plus has always had is there's sort of this mentality that people say, why do I want another social network? Why do I want to be involved with another social network?
Yeah,
And,
which is that's a perfect segue into this next piece, because Thomas, I know you haven't moved on to, but you've added another social network into your portfolio, as I have. Doug, I don't know if you've joined Elo yet, but Elo is the new kid on the block, which is then they're taking a slightly different tack towards social media. A lot of people are calling them the anti-Facebook because of their statement that they're not, their product is not the user. Your user data is not their end product, and they've got a very flat, sort of minimalistic design, which is attracting lots of people over there. Thomas Hawk, I know you were one of the reasons why I joined Elo after reading your post on it. Give us your overall thoughts on the network and how they fit into your portfolio.
Man, I am excited about Elo. I'm more excited about Elo than I've been excited about anything online for a long time.
Wow.
I think, and it's small. It's still very, very small. I mean, just to compare things, I've got like 2,000 followers on Elo versus 7 million on Google Plus. So I mean, how do you even compare those two things? But Elo, I mean, for me, the first thing that I notice about Elo is the quality of posts is 100 times better than what you find on Facebook or other sites.
Yeah.
It's just the people that are there are serious photographers, they're artists, they're serious designers, architects, all kinds of, I mean, not just people in photography or the arts. I mean, people like, Clay Shirky, they're writing, doing, Jay Rosen. I mean, these writers and thinkers that are writing interesting things. I mean, I just find it's a very, very strong group of contributors, and I think part of the reason why that's the case is because of some very specific design elements of the site. For example, the first one that I think is just brilliant from a social networking standpoint is they've created this category called noise, and this noise bucket. And it's super, super easy to move anybody you want just by clicking on their avatar and dragging it into noise, and it goes away for good.
Yeah.
I mean, not for good, but it's like Google came out with the new Gmail inbox, and they have like the inbox, and they put that social and promoted, and everything gets buried in there, and you never see it. And so they basically cleared it all out. Noise is kind of like that. I mean, so I think the message that sends to the contributors is, look, one, don't overshare. So don't post, 50 different photos or some stupid status report about, gee, isn't this frozen yogurt good tonight? I mean, take it seriously. Don't overshare, and put quality stuff out there. Don't just throw up there, oh, here are 30 photographs of the fireworks that I took last night at the park after I'd had a few drinks.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah, do a serious. So what I've noticed is the people that are posting on there are posting their very, very best work. They're oftentimes posting it with commentary. I mean, what I've been doing there that I really haven't done before is, I mean, most sites I'll just post photos, and that's pretty much it. I might explain a little bit about the photo, but I'm really being a lot more thoughtful. I'm posting a photo. I'm talking about, where did I take this photo? How did I make this photo? Was there software involved? Was it in camera? What did I do? And I think that creates a more meaningful experience for people that are consuming it. And it's small today. It's a small audience. It's not so much about a place, I think, to have your work seen by millions of people, because they won't. It's very small right now. But I think it could be big. And the whole anti-Facebook ethos, I think one of the reasons why they've grown as quickly as they have is because they got a lot of press. Just because of this, there's sort of this backlash against Facebook, and what Facebook does with your privacy, and Facebook sells your data, and I'm trying to get my home address off Facebook right now, and I'm not having any success, and I mean, they're just Facebook is seen as this, and they're promoting ads, throwing ads at you all the time, and so versus Elo is this sort of clean, ad-free experience, and photos are so big. I mean, photos.
And, it sounds like what you're saying is like Elo is kind of the way you describe Elo is kind of how we described 500px a while back. In terms of people are putting their more considered and curated works up there versus the old Flickr where people were just saying, hey, here's a CF card full of everything I shot yesterday at the park. I'm going to dump it up there and crowdsource the vetting. Right? Yeah. Are we seeing a similar kind of metaphor there?
It's kind of like that, but I would say where it's different than 500px are one, text and images are kind of given equal footing. So, and there's a lot of people that are just putting text up. In fact, are not putting any images, whereas you couldn't see that on 500px. And the text that's going up there that accompanies the images or that's up there without images is very good and insightful and creative and thoughtful and worth consuming. And the other big thing is, I think that's kind of smart, again, I mean, 500px, and I love that site too, because it just looks, visually it looks beautiful
stunning,
for photography. It's stunning. But, the whole way that they came to social, I mean, initially it was like, oh, well, you can downvote these photos and you can give things thumbs down, and there's this whole voting process, and this stuff bubbles to the top, and there's this competition almost, this mentality. I don't know how social that is or was. Whereas Elo, I think, is much more thoughtfully designed as a social network, where 500px is a great place to showcase your photos. It wasn't if you go to 500px, there's no social interaction going on. Yeah. There's some in some comments, nice, but it's similar to the comments that you get on Flickr photos or other photos. Nice, nice composition, beautiful, it's stuff like that. It's not any sort of interaction. Whereas Elo, to me, I mean, one of the things they did that was really smart, I think, too, again, is they got rid of the like. They got rid of the like, the faves, the +1, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't exist there. Yeah. So really the only way, if I like Doug's photo and I see Doug's photo, the only way that I can let Doug know is to leave a comment. So what happens is
it's not a popularity contest of let me see how many likes or +1s I can accumulate in that. And if Thomas has more than I have, then therefore his image must be better than mine, and mine is no good, right?
Right.
So
I mean, you don't even know.
If I want to comment on Doug's image, I better get in there and say, Doug, this is an amazing image. I love what you did with the composition. What were you thinking with blah 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 blah? Right. Something deeper.
Right. So there's this sort of deeper interaction, and what that does is, what I find it does is it creates more comments. Because, in the past, it's kind of, there have been a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, I'll be on Flickr, and I'm just kind of drive-by faving, oh, look at that, that's cool, I like that graffiti, fave. Oh, I like that abandoned building, fave, and it's kind of this
drive-by faving, I love that.
Like, next thing you know, you've given out 100 of them, and it's like you just, it's kind of, and who was it? Malik, I think, wrote a tweet the other day, and it was like, he put like the favorite like button is the new let's meet up of social networking. It's pretty much meaningless, and nobody means it, and it has no value.
Yeah, like the point in the let's do lunch. Hey, let's do lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is not, it's not really. Whereas if somebody has to leave a comment, they have to be. You're not going to leave as many comments. There's not. It's harder to be a drive-by commenter guy. You got to sit there and say, okay, I looked at this photo, I considered this photo, this is what I think about it, I think this is interesting, and so what that does is all of a sudden you're on the site and you're like, oh wow, I just got 10 significant comments about my work. So that kind of encourages you to come back and want to do some more, and I just think there's some thought that has gone into these elements of how a social network should work and what would make it more successful. And I like it. I think it's not a place. It's not a popularity contest like 500px is, or 500px. No, I shouldn't say popularity contest, but the whole voting thing at 500px and what's hot and this and that. And the other thing that does too, at least at 500px, is there's a certain style of photography, I think, that does very well there. And that's the style that is super polished, over the top, sort of mind-blowing photos of icebergs at the South Pole.
Yeah.
Or some waterfall, long exposure, beautiful thing. But a lot of that stuff, to me, I get bored with it. I mean, there's so much of it out there. And I'm not saying it's not great work. It really is. There's some people that are doing some stunning things. But there's a lot of artists, I mean, my biggest inspiration is William Eggleston. And his stuff would do terrible in 500px. Because it's like, this is, this banal, color composed photo of a shoe.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't, it's not this sort of glitz, glamour, the Trey Ratcliffe HDR stunner out there. And
right.
So for me, I think Elo, what I found is I found a lot of artists that are doing really creative and interesting things with design, with color, with different ways than just this sort of over polished sort of look that tends to bubble to the top at 500px.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we knew it was coming, right? We knew that there's Facebook, and there's always another network coming, because there was what before Facebook it was MySpace, before MySpace it was Friendster, before Friendster, who knows? There was something else, and it just keeps going and going and going. Doug K, you've seen Elo, I'm sure. What do you think about the network? Is what Thomas is saying true in terms of it being more of a, the content that goes up there is more considered, and it's the place where you go to get away from the liking or the drive-by liking? What do you think?
Actually, I don't know. I realized when we decided to talk about this that when I first read about this from Thomas a while back, I asked for an invitation and never heard from him. So I am not. I have
Really?
never
Did
been
you
on
ask me for
Elo. I know
one?
nothing about Elo,
You
and
didn't
like
ask me for
most.
one.
What's that?
You didn't ask me for one, did you?
No, I just went to their website, and there's a
okay.
request invitation button.
Oh.
You better send me one now.
I will.
You should have asked. You have friends in places. You should have asked someone for one.
You know
Come
what? I'm very interested because the issues that the two of you have talked about are important to me. Facebook, I can't tell you how much I hate it, but I've got family on there, and I've got to pay attention to the family.
Yeah.
But and I've stopped using Twitter. I've cut back on my social networking, but I'll tell you, I look forward to getting into something that sounds like what the two of you are describing. So probably like most of our listeners today, I'm learning a lot. I'm looking forward to giving it a try, but I can't. I have nothing to add to the conversation other than.
Well, no, I beg to differ. You do have something to add, because I want to ask you how you have these multi-social networks, right? Like you mentioned Twitter, which you're not using as much. You've got Facebook, you've got Google Plus, and soon, probably tonight, you'll have Elo as well. How do you manage these? How do you manage all of these networks? I want to ask both of you this. You have all these networks that people, you have friends. Thomas, you on the extreme side have all these fans that want to see what you're doing and what you're up to. How do you keep up with it? How do you manage to march towards your goal of 1 million while still appeasing the people that want to see what you're up to?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, first of all, Frederick should have an invitation to Elo in his inbox right now.
Oh, you mean Doug? Yeah, I'm on.
Doug. What did I say, Frederick? Yeah, Doug should have an invite. So
yeah, it's there. It's there.
yeah, I just sent him one. So, for me, I guess my workflow is such that Flickr is my main depository of images. That's where I've got almost 100,000 images up, online there. I post 32 images a day, generally speaking, to Flickr. I'm not really posting a lot of commentary. I'm just posting images there. Mm-hmm. But I've got an archive of 30,000 or so images that I haven't published to Flickr yet that are ready to go. And I randomly choose from those each day. So I have Jeremy Brooks built this great little app, that a randomizer app that basically you throw all these photos. I've got these 30,000 photos in a folder, and it randomly chooses 16 of these images out of that folder, and then I upload those.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that is really cool. Okay,
great little app. And then and Facebook's where Flickr's where I organize everything. So I keyword in Lightroom, and then that populates to the images, the files, and Flickr picks that up in the metadata. And then Jeremy Brooks, again, built another little app called Supersetter, which is really great because it builds sets on Flickr based by your keywords or tags. So that's all automated. So I've got,
that's cool.
yeah, like 2,000 albums of photos organized at Flickr. And not only will it take, these are all your, Coachella photos, but it will rank them by Flickr's interestingness algorithm, so you'll have your best ones at the top. So it's like these are all your Coachella photos, and by the way, at Coachella, here is your Lana Del Rey set, and so it breaks it down by keywords. All you have to do is set up the keyword, and it creates these sets. So Flickr, that's kind of, and so much of that now is automated for me because of Supersetter, because of this sort of process. Then Google Plus and Facebook, I'll generally post 3 to 5 photos there a day. Just random photos of mine, really, again, that I pull out and just manually upload, and so that doesn't take all that much time.
Now, do you have a set time every day that you're doing this? Like, okay, when I get up in the morning before I have my morning coffee, I'm gonna do my social media between this time, and then I'm out, or are you in and out every day, kind of doing stuff?
No, first thing in the morning every day I upload stuff every day.
Okay.
So, but that doesn't take that long. And then throughout the day, I'll be checking things out, and maybe I'll upload something to Instagram from my phone. With Instagram, I do iPhone only, and everything's processed on the iPhone, so I keep that kind of separate. But that's just more like on the fly. Oh, here's an interesting building. I'll take a picture of it, and I'll process it in Snapseed, and I'll put it up to Instagram. Okay. So that's kind of separate. And then Ello really, for me, has been the thing that I've missed, which is a really sort of, I used to use maybe my blog for it a little bit more, but a really sort of personal space where I can talk about me and what I'm doing and my photos and a trip I'm on or this or that. And so I'm spending the most time on Ello right now.
Wow.
Which is probably my least viewed social network.
Yeah.
And in large part because of Doug's comment is a good one. I think he's not on it because he doesn't have an invite. This invite process, I think, has frustrated a lot of people because they have applied and then they can't get in. And
why is that? I mean, why are they doing that, to just throttle capacity until they sort of ramp up, or is it the marketing supply and demand thing?
Well, I think they got a lot of attention very, very quickly, and they weren't really ready for it from a technical standpoint. And they had raised some venture capital money, and I think they've raised significantly more now. I think they initially raised like $400,000, and now they've raised a couple million. So I think they needed to get sort of their infrastructure in place, and I think they're getting that in place. But they were they were on the BBC, on CNN, on all these sites for about a week there, and they were getting like 1 million new signups a day, and they just as a small little network, I don't think they could keep up. So I think they kind of had to do that. And now they've loosened the invites up. Basically, you can get, as a Ello member today, you can just request more and keep requesting more. And so you can continue to hand them out. But it's still invite only. So it's still very, very slow. But I think that's also, slowed its momentum because not everybody can join up. And
people bounce off, right? I mean, if it was me and I went there and I couldn't get in, I signed up like Doug, and I bounced off, chances are I'm probably not going to go back again. I might hear this show and like, okay, I forgot about Ello. Let me go check it out again and see if I can get in. But you're not going to keep banging your head against the wall, right?
Right. You're not. And I think you get in some cases one opportunity to make a first impression, right? And so if you didn't make it there, then, with a lot of users. But I think Ello's okay with that because I don't think it's trying to be the next Facebook. As much as people keep comparing them to Facebook, I think that for them, if they have 1/100th% of the Facebook users, but they're high quality, interesting, creative types, and it's a vibrant, lush social network where this group of people that maybe in the end it's only 10 million people as opposed to billions of people on Facebook, I think they're fine with that. I think they're I don't think they're trying to become this mammoth be all and end all. that Facebook is. I mean,
Yeah.
so I don't mind the invite process. You know, it's a little harder to get in, but if you don't care enough not to come back, maybe you're not the type of person that should have been on it in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of like, to continue our party metaphor, Facebook would be the rave in the warehouse with people running around in diapers and pacifiers, and then you've got Ello, which is across the street. It's a cocktail party where people can, just kind of mingle and talk and have deeper conversations, right?
For all the hipsters, it's the hipster cocktail party.
A hipster cocktail party, yeah. So. Doug, what about you? I mean, how are you managing the networks that you're a member of right now and keeping on top of stuff? I know you mentioned before you're heading to San Francisco to test some cameras and all that. How do you do that as well as keep up with your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram? I don't know if you're on Pinterest. It just, it goes on and on. You'll be on Ello. How does that work?
Well, first of all, I'm now on Ello. Thanks, Thomas. And I have this image of hipsters in diapers I can't get out of my head.
And the pacifier. You gotta have the pacifier.
There we go. And don't hipsters, aren't they all smoking those electric cigarettes now? Isn't that part of being hipster now?
Oh, the e-cigs. The e-cigs, yeah.
Well, I'm almost a Luddite when it comes to social networking. And I was much bigger into it before, but I'm posting, I tend to post, I export from Lightroom. My images, I almost only post images. I don't do anything else. They go to Google Plus. I copy and paste, put the exact same thing on Facebook because I'm serving different audiences there. Yeah. And the only time I turn to Twitter is when I've got something exciting to say, like a new episode of All About the Gear. It's gotten that much because it's, it took up too much out of my life. I'd rather be doing photography than spending my time on social media. But, I have a hand followers versus 11 million. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at some point,
you get what you ask for, right?
I've considered declaring social media bankruptcy, let me tell you, yeah. And just saying, you know what, who did that? Scott Bourne or someone did that. It's like, you know what, I'm done with all of this stuff. I'm gonna focus on this other stuff now. And I have a good number of followers, nowhere near Thomas Hawk there, but there's a gravity there, right? Thomas Hawk, I don't think you could walk away. You're like Jupiter when it comes to social media, and you have some pretty strong gravity over there. You could not walk away if you wanted to, could you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I like it, but I look at it differently. I look at it as social media to me is this wonderful avenue to distribute your work to the world.
Yeah.
And you could put your work up and have more people see it and have all over the world than if it's in a major art museum anymore.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
So, for me, I look at that as an artist and I say, what an amazing distribution tool. And it doesn't matter, how big someone's network is. I think having that distribution tool, 30 years ago, you'd make a picture and maybe you'd take it down to the local county fair and win second prize and make a little print, and that's all fine. But nobody would see your work, really. I mean, unless you were somebody famous and you were Ansel Adams and your work was shown in museums, by and large, nobody would see your stuff. And now there's no more gatekeepers. There's no museum curators. There's no magazine editors. I mean, they're all still there, and that world still exists. But the social media world kind of bypasses all of that and lets you just say, okay, I'm going direct. I'm just putting it out there. So as an artist, and that is a serious distribution vehicle, no way could I walk away from that perspective. But beyond that, just as distribution, you don't have to interact. I mean, that can be one-sided, right? You can just put your stuff up out there just like it's on a website and never interact. But that would be, for me, I want more out of a social network. And so what I really have always valued has been community. And so whether it's back at Flickr and groups and sort of the early days getting plugged into a lot of those, and a lot of community that becomes online, that starts out as online and ends up becoming offline, real meaningful, significant relationships. So many of my friends, my closest friends, are people that I've met online through social media that now we spend all kinds of offline time and go on trips together and go shoot and all of that. So I don't want to say I I don't want to say I have to have that, but I think that's a very compelling reason or something that I've found. I mean, you have to be careful too because there's a lot of crazy people out there, but there's some pretty cool people, and I found interacting with those people through social media, and Ello right now is where I'm doing that interacting, but more than any other site. But I mean, I love that personally. I thrive on that.
I'm still here. I think my network crapped out for a minute.
Yeah. So I think there's the production side and the presentation side, and then there's the social side, and I love both.
And I'll reinforce that. Even though my activity has dwindled a bit, as Thomas said, I've made long-term friends on social media. If I go different places in the world, I've always got people to connect with and shoot with and have dinner with and have a drink with, and some of these people I've met online, as Thomas says, are now some of my very closest friends. So and there's the whole concept of relationships that are only online. People I never will meet, and they're very close to me also. So it's very important.
Yeah, it is, and I'll take it from a separate direction. It's an asset now, right? This is an asset that you wouldn't have had, Thomas, say 10 years ago. Now with these millions and millions of followers, there's a direct correlation to things that you promote and revenue and just overall influence as a photographer, right? People look at you, they look at those numbers, and they're like, oh, come on in, Mr. Hawk, have a seat in the front.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And I mean, and I think more and more that people are going to find that there is economic value to that there is from a business standpoint. I mean, I just this last month I did it's no secret, I did a photo walk with Microsoft. I got paid to do that. I did a deal with Canon, wrote some blog posts, which I love Canon, so I'm happy to endorse it. I've been using it for 10 years. Yeah. But Canon approaches me and says, "Hey, we want to give you some cash to write about your lenses." Yeah. Oh, okay, sure, why not?
Right.
So, from my perspective, I mean, I've had people that have offered me money to talk about gear and stuff in the past as well, and I've turned down plenty of times because I don't use it, and I'm not gonna. If someone says, "Oh, well, you should really," this is, if it's a crappy lens, I'm not gonna do it. But if there's stuff. And I think as the big brands try to consider, how do we get into this social space? It's obviously from a marketing standpoint, so we can put ads on Facebook and we can do these different things. But I think they're going to be looking more and more at people on social media and saying, hey, let's partner with that guy. He's using our product, or woman, she's using, this product that we already have. So at minimum, they're going to be sending them a bunch of free stuff. I mean, I get a lot of that already, but then it's going to be, hey, what can we do together? You like our product, but I'm sure you're seeing this too as well yourself. I mean, you have a very prominent show, and so there are going to be people that are going to say, hey, I'm sure you get pitched all the time.
Absolutely,
sure
absolutely. That's I was shooting with Panasonic Lumix gear before I even started working with them, and just like you said, they saw, hey, you're working with us, help us get the word out about it. Why not? And as a result of just the fact that I have a reasonably high, what is it? What's the rating? Clout score. Sony contacted me to come and review the A7 and the A7R launch that they did. I think it's probably other things as well, but that was one of the factors. Hey, let's look at these people. They're a photographer and have a high clout score. Let's use them. It's pretty brute force like that, right?
Well, and it's smart, and to a certain degree, that's where the Google Plus stuff kicks in as well, because the way that Google tailors search results, if you're following somebody, so somebody's got 7 million followers, you're following them, and you search for a topic that they've written about, that's going to be on the front page.
Right.
So where certain brands are starting to get smart is they're saying, okay, well, look, people are going to be searching for my camera, and if this person's talking about my camera on, say, Google Plus, anybody that follows them is going to see that if they search for this camera. So there's a lot of aspects to it. I mean, there's search, there's social, there's getting the word out, and I think, frankly, I think brands are smart. I think they say, oh, we can spend, $10,000 for, an ad in this magazine, this photo magazine that nobody reads anymore, or we can, go online and find, somebody on Facebook or Twitter or Flickr or wherever, Google Plus, that's doing something interesting, and partner up.
Or someone with an amazingly popular, cool podcast.
Exactly. About photography.
I'm just saying, it's a path of least resistance here,
I want to throw out one thing that's probably relevant to a larger section of our audience, though, which is Thomas mentioned the value of exposure, getting your images out there. Most of us would never have our images in galleries and so forth, and now what an opportunity. The fact is to get your images out there and to help you learn. I think that social media in the last 3-4 years has been a fairly significant contributor to my improvement as a photographer. Both in terms of getting feedback and in terms of looking at other people's images and giving feedback. And I think that's something that needs to be made a point of here, which is that the real value is, as a photographer, is interacting with other photographers, looking at and sharing your own images. That's going to work. That's going to work for people that even if they only have a handful of followers.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. As soon as Doug started following me and looking at all my images, I noticed his photography got a lot better.
Look at that. All right, we'll leave that.
The problem with that comment is that it's true.
No.
And Thomas knows that because Thomas he knows this. We've talked about this. He has been an influence on me, and not that everybody else hasn't too. But I love his work, and we share. Sometimes we share a common style.
Yeah.
Well, and I've been I just copy Frederick, so really we're all
here we go. Now it's getting deep, right now. And on that note, we're gonna I want to thank the next sponsor for this episode of TWiP, and that's our good friends over at FreshBooks.com. All right, guys, before we end the show, let's dive into the Picks of the Week segment. Remember, you guys can pick anything to recommend to the TWiP audience, as long as it is somehow related to photography. Doug K., I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick of the week?
My pick of the week, I want you to know that I picked this before I even saw the show notes, before I knew what we were going to talk about tonight. And my pick of the week is Lightroom Mobile, which is free if you're a Lightroom user, I think, or at least if you're a Creative Cloud user. And let me tell you why. Because I'm still looking for the ultimate way to get a portfolio onto my mobile devices as pain-free as possible. And Lightroom Mobile is quite remarkable in that you take a collection, you tag it to sync to your mobile device, and it's just there. And if you want to change the sequence, you can edit it on either side. It'll immediately be reflected in the other. It's the simplest way to get a portfolio onto an iOS or Android device if you're a Lightroom user. So I love it. Yeah. It's free. Check it out.
Yeah, caveat, yes, it is free, but you have to have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription in order to use it, right?
Yeah, and I'll bet more and more of our listeners do.
No, yeah, they do, but still, you got to have that subscription to use it. So
that's my pick, and I only wish one thing, and that is that the web version that you get to see would be better. Their web version is sort of useless, and if they would link their Behance product into their Lightroom Mobile, they'd have a killer app there.
Yeah. Well, you got to leave them some room to iterate and improve on stuff. Anyway. Awesome. Good, excellent pick. Thomas Hawk, do you have a pick of the week for us?
Okay. Well, we already talked about the iMac, so I'm not going to mention it again.
You can pick it if you want.
No. That'd be too easy.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Analog FX Pro 2.
Oh.
It's a wonderful photo processing package that was put out by the NIC people, actually, that Google bought. It's a Google product now, I guess. But it's that team that built it and the same people behind Snapseed. The stuff that I don't get excited about photo processing tools very easily. I mean, we have Lightroom, and Lightroom is the core engine that I do everything in. But the ability, I mean, it's a very, very good sort of effects, film emulation sort of tool, and I find myself more and more running photos through that application, and it's got a Lightroom plugin, so you just plug it in the Lightroom and then just bring it from Lightroom after you make your edits right in there, and you can do a lot. It's got a lot of motion blur, a lot of textures, a lot of different things like that. So that's my pick. I love it. I think they've got a free trial version of it, but or you could buy it. I don't know how much it is. It's probably like $100 or something.
It's amazing. Yeah. There's so many cool tools out there for us, isn't it? I mean, it just
I know.
they keep coming. So my pick before we move on is, so like many others, got a new phone a couple of weeks ago. You know, I've got an iPhone 6, not the big one. I got the regular iPhone 6, and I took it to New York with me, and I did some. Myself and Giulio Shorio were wandering around Times Square, and we did some time-lapse photography with this thing. Dude, it is so easy to make killer time-lapses with this. You just want to make everything into a time-lapse with this.
Wow.
You know, and you have a little tripod clamp, so you can put on tripod, set it up, frame it, find something with motion in it, hit the button, that's it. You're done. You know, does the whole thing. One trick in the iPhone photo app is if you tap and hold on the screen, it will exposure lock to that area, you know, so it won't change the exposure as the lighting changes, as you know, things in the scene change. So if you tap and hold, it'll lock it, so you get a much more professional looking time lapse. Dude, I did that. This thing, you know, as a result of that, I just wandered around New York City taking photos with my iPhone, and I'm just blown away by the quality of the photos I can get from something that I just slip in my pocket. You know.
So is that unique to the iPhone 6? You can't do that with the iPhone 5?
I'm not sure. It might be unique to just iOS 8, because I never put iOS 8 on my iPhone 5S. So if you have an iPhone 5S, check and see in the Photos app.
I've got, yeah.
Yeah, check and see if it's got time lapse in there. If it does, and you're in business. Otherwise, you know, maybe it's only on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. But regardless, wherever it is, that is a killer feature. If you have it, play with it.
Time lapse. Yeah, I see. Is it that?
There you go.
Right there, right? Time lapse.
That's it. That's it. Yes.
All right. I'm gonna play with this. Yeah,
Dude.
I'm still on the 5S. I haven't gotten the big 6 thing yet.
Yeah, if you have a glyph or one of those things that allows you to stick your iPhone on a tripod or something, stick it on a tripod, aim it at something that moves, and let it roll. You know, and it was yesterday. I was getting ready to check out of my hotel room in New York City to fly back, and I set it up on a tripod before I jumped in the shower and did a street scene. I put this up on Instagram. You can check it out on my profile. I did not a street scene, but a skyline scene of the clouds sort of moving over the buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
I let it roll, and I got in the shower, jumped out, and when I was done, I had this cool time lapse of clouds changing patterns over these giant buildings and all that, just like that.
I'm definitely going to check that out. I have not done one yet.
I expected you to say that we were going to have a time lapse of your shower. That's where I thought this was going.
Oh.
It ain't that kind of show, man.
I wonder why it got so many views on Instagram.
Yeah.
The lens is wide, but it's not quite that one. No.
Now, have you played with Hyperlapse, the Instagram one?
No, not yet. I did a couple of shots with Hyperlapse. I haven't played with it in depth yet. Have you?
Yeah. No, I played around with that a little bit. I just wonder how it compares. I wonder how those two are. I wonder if it's a similar sort of thing. I love the Hyperlapse. I've made a couple of those, like the airplane taking off and in the Chicago at the United Terminal with all the neon and the walkway and all that. But
nice. I think probably the main difference, they limit the duration on a hyperlapse to like 15 seconds, right?
Well, they limit it to what you can publish, I think, to 15 seconds or to 10 seconds. Is it 10 or 15? Okay. I think it's 15. Yeah, but you can make it as long as you want.
Okay. Yeah. Same with the Apple app, and it's not square, obviously. So you can this thing, you could let it run overnight if you had the battery life for it. And
Hyperlapse is not square either, but it's only if you want to publish it to Instagram that it becomes square. So you can just save it on your camera roll as a hyperlapse as a video and post it someplace else or full size. But
I'm gonna play with it. I'm definitely bitten by the time lapse / hyperlapse bug. It's just it's really cool to compress time.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. I love it too. I'm definitely gonna try that. I didn't even know I had that on this since I updated the OS.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to do a quick write up about it too because it's brain dead easy, and I got this little tool that screws to the top of your tripod. It's basically like an egg timer, with a tripod screw on the top of it, and you crank the thing, put your camera on it, and it smoothly pans, as it's doing the time lapse. So you get the time lapse with the pan through the scene,
Oh, nice.
and
Nice.
the thing costs like $30, and it just
Yeah.
makes it look like you're, some Hollywood studio or something. So I'll put a link to it in the blog post. But
Start
it's
calling you Hollywood, Frederick.
I know, man. I'm the multimediographer. What can I say?
Yeah,
Come on.
that's good.
All right, guys. We are at the end of the show. Before we close the show, I want to thank our final sponsor for this episode of TWiP, and that's my personal friend, Nate Grayheck over at StickyAlbums.com. All right, guys, we are at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. Doug K., where can people go to check you out online? Let me guess, Ello.
Nothing. Go to Ello and find Doug K there. Thank you, Thomas. But the best places are DougK.com. That's my portfolio site, and from there, links to everywhere else. And, of course, all about the gear on the TWiP network.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and Mr. Thomas Hawk, as if we need
Just
to ask you.
put Thomas Hawk
Google my
into
name,
Google.
right? Google me.
Just put
right?
Thomas Hawk into Google, and it's everywhere. For Google Plus Thomas Hawk, Flickr Thomas Hawk, Ello Thomas Hawk. Although Ello is where I'm hanging out more these days. If you want to hang out and chat, that's where I'm at.
Is it safe to say that your two main places that you hang out are Ello and Flickr?
Well, I probably started to hang out. I mean, I publish photos to Flickr and Google Plus and Facebook, but no, I don't really hang out on those sites as much. I hang out more on Ello.
Okay.
Right now, but for now, I mean, I do interact on those sites on Flickr and Facebook and Google Plus, and I have conversations there, but I'm just not. They're not like where I'm really kind of going and hanging out and chatting with people.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And, this time, 18 months, 2 years from now, we'll be having a different conversation because things keep changing. It just keeps changing. So, yeah, and that's, it's funny. I had a conversation with Trey a while back, Trey Ratcliffe, and, I think it was about the secret to his millions of followers and how he keeps up on them. And one of his secrets was it's stick and move, man. He don't stick to any one particular network, and if you see something else pop up, don't be afraid. I'm not talking to you, Doug. Don't be the Luddite. Don't be the Luddite saying, I'm not playing over there. You gotta go get your name and jump in and see how it is early. Right?
Oh, you do. I mean, I'm surprised anytime some new site comes around how much resistance there always is to it. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh no, that sucks. I'm too invested in this site. Mm-hmm. And I think Trey's right, man. You gotta, I mean, at minimum, go there and get your name. Even if you don't use it, before somebody else does, lock your name in but I love new things, man. Something new, I'm like Trey that way. I want to jump into it and play with it and get into it. So.
Right. It's a playground, and they keep giving us new toys to play in the sand with. So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you both for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Frederick. It always is a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thomas, I promise to get you off that banned list. I'm going to do my best. I know people. I know people at TWiP HQ. I will get you off the banned list.
There we go. Yeah. I thought it was because I had those 4 bottles of wine last time I started taking my clothes off, but
yeah, no, that would have made it a better show. But hey, I got mine, and it's almost second fill up time.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
All right, and listeners, be sure to visit our brand new website over at thisweekinphoto.com. There you'll find all of our shows, including Doug's show, all about the gear, and many, many more. And with that, it's time to take that lens cap off.